Welcome to the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. I'm your host, Jacob Cooper, best-selling author of Life After Breath and Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. For those of you who are new to my podcast, please consider hitting that subscribe button as well as bell notification icon to stay up to date to interviews coming your way. Today's guest in the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder is a special return guest, author of Conversations with God and many other publications, Neale Donald Walsch. Neale is going to be sharing his own personal stories as well as insights for today's times and his own incredible wisdom that we could apply to reach everyday grace. So without further ado, we bring on Neale Donald Walsch on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. Neale Donald Walsch, a pleasure to have you here back as a guest on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. Thank you for coming on again.
Thank you, Jacob. It's lovely to be here with you again. How can I serve the moment?
Well, certainly, Neale. We spoke a couple months ago, and certainly it's a much different world in many ways than when we last spoke. And hopefully throughout the course of our dialogue, we could find a lot of solutions to some of the problems that may be occurring on a micro and macro level. But for those of you who, haven't heard, our interview or your story before, could you just share us a little bit about your background and how you came to this connectivity with, call it God, a higher power, higher source? Because I found your story to be quite moving and profound.
Well, Jacob, thank you for saying that. Let me share, first of all, that I think we all have this connection.
Mm-hmm.
I want to fight the impression. I want to really make sure we don't or create the impression that I'm the guy who has this special connection.
Mm-hmm.
I was told very, very clearly in my conversation with God, and this is God speaking to the world. She said, I talk to everybody all the time. The question is not to whom am I talking? The question is who's listening. So if we can make it real clear to our audience that I'm not thinking that I'm the special guy who has had a conversation with God, isn't it too bad that we can't all have this experience? We are all having the experience. Most people are simply calling it something else. Women's intuition, an epiphany, a sudden insight, an inspiration, but it's really the same experience. I think the only real difference between that experience and my own is that the experiences that I've just described are generally one-offs here and there, now and then, once in a while. It may happen to us 6 or 8 or 10 times across a period of several years. But when I experienced that sense of connection, I simply took steps to keep it going, to keep it alive, to keep it, keep that connection real for me on a moment-to-moment basis. Not that I walk around in that space all the time, but I have developed the ability for myself to make that connection and remake that connection whenever I choose to. And I think that all of us have that ability as well. And many other people do that. I'm not the only person. You know what's interesting, Jacob? I got a letter a few years ago from a lady who said to me, I have to tell you, Mr. Walsh, there's a lie on the cover of your book. And I said, really? What would it be? I wrote her, email back, and she wrote me an email back saying, Mr. Walsh, your book says on the cover, Conversations with God, subtitle, An Uncommon Dialogue. Mr. Walsh, there's nothing uncommon about it. I have conversations with God all the time, and I'm sure many other people do as well. And I thought about it, and I thought, that is exactly true. Thank goodness I could escape. The accusation that I lied, because I said, you know what, to be fair to good old me, I didn't create the title. I created the title Conversation with God. I told the publisher, that's the title. But the publisher put the drop line, the so-called underline, under the title. They put the line, an uncommon dialogue, because they just assumed that it was an uncommon dialogue. But I wrote back to her and I said, you're perfectly correct. It's not an uncommon dialogue. People are having conversations with God all the time. But now, to answer your question that you asked a half hour ago. I should tell you, by the way, that I offer 30-minute answers to 12-minute questions. So, but my answer to your question that you led off with is, what led me to the experience, Jacob, was that I was simply moving through, as many of us have done. I want to almost say all of us have done at one point or another. I was moving through a very, very challenging and difficult period of time in my life. I had lost my relationship. Thank goodness it wasn't acrimonious. We just agreed that we weren't making it together. So in a gentle and kind way, we decided to part company, but it was still a very, very sad day for me. 5 days later, I lost my job, as it happened, by coincidence. 5 days after losing the relationship, the corporation that I worked for said they needed to downsize, lose some overhead. And I had the least amount of seniority, so I was the first to go. So I lost my relationship and lost my job within a 5-day period. But wait a minute, life wasn't done with me yet. 5 days after that, I'm on my way in the car to an interview for another job. And I was certain I was going to get the job because they advertised for a person who had absolutely my experience and my qualifications. I thought they're going to hire me in a minute. I never got to the appointment. An old gentleman driving his car made a left turn. He misjudged the distance between his car and mine, made a left turn right into my car, smashed me, and it wasn't a fender bender. It was a major collision. I mean, he totaled my car. He smashed into the driver's side of my car, making a left turn, and I suffered a broken neck in the car accident. And Jacob, I wish I could tell you that it was a hairline fracture, but it wasn't. I recall the wording on the X-ray report. It said I had suffered a 3/4 inch avulsion fracture of the 7 cervical vertebrae posteriorly. That's a fracture big enough in your neck to put a pencil through.
Oh my God. Oy.
So the doctor said to me when I came out of the anesthesia, "You're lucky to be alive. Most people who suffer that particular kind of injury either die on the spot, or at the very least, they're paralyzed from the neck down because of spinal cord complications." He said, "Somehow or another, you escaped both outcomes." And he leaned over the table that I was lying on and he said, "So what are you going to do with the rest of your life?"
Wow.
Because, he wanted to impress upon me that I had been given, an enormous gift, powerful gift. So I said, "Okay, I get it." But I couldn't find a job anywhere, Jacob. I was still going to interviews after, I recovered, but I was wearing what they call a Philadelphia collar. That's a therapeutic device that holds your head up.
Yes.
And I had to wear it for a year and a half because, until my neck healed, because he said, there's nothing holding your head up. So I was walking around trying to get an interview, and I was going to job interviews, but nobody would hire me. And I thought, this is strange. Certainly somebody must need a person with my qualifications. Finally, the 7th man that interviewed me said, "Mr. Walsh, I got to be honest with you. Nobody's going to hire you while you're wearing that therapeutic device around your neck. We're all very clear that one wrong move while you're on the job, we're paying your medical bills for the next 10 years. We can't afford to hire somebody who clearly is disabled, with an injury such as this. We would hire a disabled person, but not a person with an active injury right now to his neck." So I realized no one was going to hire me. And it was true. No one would. I couldn't find a job. I ran out of my savings after a few months. And I wound up being evicted from the small apartment that I had rented when my relationship ended. Now I'm living on the street. I have nowhere to go. I have no money. I've got just pocket change. I'm living on the sidewalk, Jacob. And I thought, well, I can do this for a couple of bad weeks, or a couple of tough months even. I'll find something. I was out there living on the sidewalk for a year. 2 weeks shy of 1 year living on the sidewalk, sleeping on the ground, begging people, going to one person after the other on the street, asking if they might have some spare change that they could offer me, because I just wanted to eat that day. And and you really lose your dignity when you're living on the street like that. I didn't really think about it too much until it became a reality in my life. But I realized I don't even have a place to use the bathroom. I mean, I literally have to sneak into restaurants, slip into McDonald's, and maybe use the restroom. Hopefully the manager won't kick me out. But after the manager saw me there 3 or 4 times, he finally walked over to me and he said, "Come on, man, come on. We don't want any panhandlers in here. You're going to just be bugging the people asking for." I said, "No, I promise. I won't ask. I won't talk to anybody. Please, can I just use the bathroom every so often? I have no place to use the bathroom." He said, "We have a deal. You don't talk to anybody. You don't panhandle anybody. You don't ask anybody for money in here, and you can use the restroom whenever you need to." Now we can laugh at that, but at that moment in my life, I felt that somebody had given me the gift of a lifetime, the dignity of at least being able to go to the toilet someplace other than outside in the woods. So I lived that way for a year. When I got off of the street, finally I found a little part-time job. I was still wearing the collar, but some radio station gave me a weekend job as a fill-in announcer. And I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was able to afford a little studio apartment on top of somebody's garage, which I took gratefully. And I wanted, at least I was out of the weather. And by golly, I had a toilet. I was living, it was luxury for me. I was living a luxurious life. But that's when I woke up. Sorry, this is a long answer to your question, but this is how it happened. I woke up one morning after I was in that little studio apartment for, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks. And I woke up furious with the world and with God, if you please. And I sat up on the couch. There wasn't a bedroom. It was like one room studio with a couch and a coffee table and a chair and a table to eat on. And that was about it. And they did have a little refrigerator in there, and that was about all there was. So I'm sitting up on the couch, and there was a yellow legal pad on the coffee table that I had gotten to make some lists, what I was going to do next, and groceries I needed and so forth. I started writing an angry letter to God. It was just out of frustration. It's 4:30 in the morning, and I'm writing a letter. Dear God, what does it take to make life work? And what have I done to deserve a life of such endless struggle? And I can recall actually the exact words I wrote down there, because I wrote the following question. What are the rules? Tell me the rules. I'll play this silly game you call life. Just tell me the rules. Don't change them every 5 minutes, because my experience in life is that the rules of life are changing from one time and one place to the next. So I'm just writing this angry letter to God, just to get my feelings out. And that's when I heard the voice. At first, I actually thought it was somebody in the room behind me. But of course, I turned around, there was no one there. And I thought, great. Now I'm not only losing my mind, I'm getting delirious. So I thought, what's going on? But I heard the voice in my head, Jacob, and it said, Neale, do you really want answers to all of these questions? Or are you just venting? And I remember thinking, I am venting. If you've got answers, I'd sure as hell like to know what they are. And God said to me, the voice at that point, which I later identified as being from the divine, the voice said to me, you are sure as hell about a lot of things, Neale. But wouldn't you rather be sure as heaven? And I'm thinking, all right, what's that supposed to mean? And I wrote that down on the legal pad. All right, what's that supposed to mean? And the voice said, take this down and I'll answer your questions. So fair enough. I started answering, or I should say taking down, all the questions that were being answered. And it was very much like taking dictation. I simply took dictation. Of course, the answers that I received brought up other questions, which brought up other answers, which brought up other questions. And before I knew it, I was involved in a Q&A on paper, question, answer, until I, realized that I was engaged in an actual dialogue. And then I realized as well that this information is coming to me from a higher place, which I later learned is a place that resides within all of us,
Mm.
the place of wisdom and clarity, deep understanding that resides within all of us because it is the part of God that exists and that has been placed inside of every sentient being in the cosmos. We are each an individuation of God. And we're not calling on something from above, please come down and give me some answers. We're calling answers, we're calling them forth from deep within. And all spiritual teachers have told us that this is how spiritual masters, I'm not one of them, but spiritual teachers tell us that the true spiritual masters behaved in exactly the same way. They called forth from within themselves the grandest truth, the greatest understanding, and the deepest insights. So that's my story. You asked me a 10-second question, and I gave you a 10-minute answer.
It felt like a moment. It was your story is beautiful, Neale, and I think in a way it just reminds us of that universal principle where at times we could feel disenfranchised from this earth or kicked out of this home or rejected from others, but we always have a home with God. And it seemed for you, you were able to find that after feeling a sense of literal homelessness here on this planet. But I know with a lot of people, and I work in the mental health field, certainly, a lot of people feel justified um, in their relationship with anything. If they were ill treated, they'll have a sense of anger and they'll feel justified with that approach. Maladaptive, not productive, but that is understandable. And so, from what you're saying, God is like a relationship. And for you who has been there, um, at we could say close to the abyss of the human suffering to a degree, how do people reconcile that justification for maybe their anger at life when they've had just getting like Harold Kushner's books, like bad things happening to good people, like so many people have had so many cumulative disadvantages on a human level, and how do you find that space to begin to repair and fill that space with a degree of an acceptance and love when everything in your life has been the exact opposite of that?
My observation, Jacob, is that how people get to that place and how they can justify, that what you call quite accurately an understandable anger, anger with life, and even anger with God for those who believe in God. How they can get to that place is by misunderstanding who they really are.
Mhm.
See, my observation of people, including myself, before I had my conversations with God, experienced my observation of most human beings, as I said, myself included, is that we think that we are this. I mean, I thought for 50 years, this is who I am. I mean, I'm my body. I'm this guy. I'm my body. And I have a mind, fair enough, but this is who I am. I'm a physical entity, a life form, if you please, expressing life in the realm of the physical. And because I think this is who I am, I think that what happens to me must be occurring because of some element outside of myself. I'm certainly not bringing on, or at least not intentionally bringing on the conditions of my life. I certainly didn't intentionally cause the corporation I worked for to need to downsize and let me go. I didn't intentionally cause that guy to crash into my car and so forth. And people don't experience that they are intentionally creating the outcomes in their life, the events of their life. Maybe one or two we take responsibility for. Okay, fair enough, I caused that. But the largest number of negative experiences in our life we think are just happening to us, like rain falling down on us. We have no control over it.
Mhm.
That's understandable. Now, the solution is to, at least my understanding of the solution based on what I was told in my conversations with God, the solution is for us to re-identify ourselves, to become clear with regard to who we really are. So I got very clear that this is not who I am. This is something that I have. I have a body. I have a mind, but this is not who I am. These are simply, if I could put it this way, tools used by that which I really am in order to complete a particular agenda. And who I really am is a spiritual entity. I'm actually a spiritual being, what some religions call a soul. I am a soul, and SOUL. That's who I am. And my soul is using this particular piece of equipment this time around. I've come to learn that I've used other pieces of equipment as well. That is, I have reincarnated, not just once or twice or 3 or 5 times, but I'm told actually hundreds of times.
Wow.
I have, as have we all, from my understanding. We've reincarnated and returned to the realm of the physical, from the realm of the spiritual, where our soul calls, which our soul calls home. And I've come to the realm of the physical in order to experience, through the expression thereof, my true identity, in order to express and demonstrate that I am in fact an individuation of divinity. And that is the purpose of life, in my understanding. That is what's going on here in the realm of the physical. Because in the realm of the physical, there exists, Jacob, something that does not exist, frankly, in the realm of the spiritual, and that is a contextual field. Let me just double back here and explain, if I could, briefly for our audience. My understanding from my conversations with God is that there are 3 realms in the kingdom of heaven, or what's loosely called the kingdom of God. The realm of the physical, the realm of the spiritual, and the realm of pure being, which is the realm of the physical and spiritual put together, what you might call heaven. So we come to the realm of the physical because in this particular place, there exists what I've come to know as a contextual field. There is no contextual field in the realm of the spiritual, from my understanding. And by the way, I've been there in an out-of-body experience and in a near-death experience. I've been there. And all there is in the realm of the spiritual, from my experience, is pure love, here and now, always. There isn't even a sense of time. It's always here and always now. And all you experience is the pure love of the divine. So you are in a place of pure love all the time, in every single moment. Well, that may sound like heaven, and it is heavenly for sure. But at some point, the soul says, I'd like to express that. I'd like to actually demonstrate that so that I can not just know it, but experience it. It's one thing to know who you are. It's another thing to experience it. So I come to the realm of the physical because in the realm of the physical, there exists a contextual field where that which I am is greeted often by that which I am not. In other words, I think I'm the light, there's the darkness. There's big and small, fast and slow, up and down, left and right, here and there, before and after, powerful and weak, and what you would call good and what you would call evil, and male and female. So there are these elements that are the other than. And because the other than exists in the contextual field, we can experience who we really are. To use the example that I use when I'm giving a little talk anywhere, let's just say, metaphorically speaking, I am the light. I'm just going to use a metaphor. If I imagine myself to be the light, it's all very well and good to think of myself in that way, but if I want to express myself as the light, I can only do so in a place called the darkness. Otherwise, I'm like a candle in the sun. I'm there all right, along with 10 million other candles, but I can't experience myself as the light, nor can I express myself in that way. Therefore, I will, in fact, believe it or not, place myself in the contextual field where the other than, in this case, the darkness, exists. And if I'm really clear about what's going on and why it's going on, I will not condemn the darkness. I will not make the darkness wrong. Or as someone once said more clearly 2,000 years ago, judge not and neither condemn. But bless your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. And when a man slaps you on the right cheek, turn it off for him your left. And when a man demands your coat, give him your shirt as well.
I have to have a better body to do that, but I'll try.
And when a man asks you to walk 1 mile with him, go with him twain. People who live that way find that they can deal with the opposite of who they are, rolling in on them, and they can use what I call the contextual field. This is called the law of opposites. People who live at that level of awareness can use the law of opposites to produce the exact experience they came to the realm of the physical to produce. Then when they die with very few regrets. I could be wrong about all of that, but that's my understanding.
Wow. And so for people who ask, is there a purpose to pain or struggle? In many ways, it's to experience that light within that dark and that duality, but is that kind of, in a way, what you're saying is just to remember who you are in its opposite form and to shine that light.
To give us an opportunity to actually express and experience that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. That's a beautiful perspective, to have. And certainly in our world right now, it feels like one big gang, at least in our country, where there's so much separation, division, violence, and there's many people who want to have solutions and are coming from a place what they feel is the best way. But it just kind of wonders, like, where do we go all wrong? We're in the year 2024 and the same barbarism is repeating itself, daily in front of us. And I'm just wondering, how do we, as a collective, move the needle already? Because it seems in many ways we are progressing, and in other ways, we're just running the same plays that we've been running for thousands of years. Just wondering, how do we get there?
We move the needle by changing our cultural story. We currently exist within a cultural story that says that we're separate from everyone and everything else. I'm over here, you're over there. And I'm separate from you, and I'm separate from everything. I'm separate from the trees outside, the lawn in my backyard, the dogs that I call my pets. I'm separate from the clouds. I'm most of all, by the way, I'm separate from God, if I even believe in a God at all. If I believe in a higher power at all, the higher power is up there and I'm down here. So I'm separate from everything. The cultural story of humanity is a story of separation. How we move the needle and change what has been a 10,000-year experience of this species is to decide, I'm not separate from anything. Jacob, the very first message I received in conversations with God, 3,000 pages, by the way, of dialogue. But on the first 20 pages of those 3,000 pages came the very first message. Neale, we are all one. All things are one thing. There is only one thing, and all things are part of the one thing there is. Now, when I see that there's no separation, that doesn't mean there are no differences, by the way. Individuality is part of the process, but individuality does not mean separation. The fingers of my hand are individual, each one looking different and having a different function and different capabilities, but they're not separate from each other. They're simply differentiated, but they are still connected to the same hand, the hand still connected to the same body. We are all, if I could use a metaphor again, fingers on the hands of God. We are all individuations of divinity, but we're not separate from each other. Now, if we decided to live in a way that demonstrated our belief that we are not separated from each other, that you are me, a part of me, you're a part of me, and I'm a part of you, that we are all part of the same essence. And I don't mean that figuratively, I mean quite literally, that we are all one. We're simply differentiated, but we're not really separate. If I lived that way, the world would change overnight. I mean, if all of us lived that way, even if the majority of us lived that way, the world would change overnight. And that's how we would get to that place you described, where we move the needle and we stop behaving like barbarians. But, again, there's nothing new here. This is not a brand new idea.
Mm-hmm.
There was this guy who was walking around the planet about 2,000 years ago or so, who put this quite eloquently. He simply said, you want to know how to move the needle? Do unto others as you would have it done unto you. What he didn't add, because he thought we got it, what he didn't add was, do unto others what you would have done unto you, because what you do unto others is being done unto you, because there's nobody else in the room.
Wow.
Or what some people have said these days, the youngsters of our time say, what goes around comes around.
Karma, yes.
So how do we move the needle? Stop seeing everyone else as separate from us. I've never seen the degree of separation that I'm seeing, and it's turned into alienation. If a person is different from us in any way, different color, different religion, different political persuasion, different place of being, different home state, different country that they live in, if they have any difference at all, we make them wrong for their differences.
Yeah. It's bizarre. I wouldn't be allowed in half the countries in the world based on
Well, of course,
who
that's
I am and my
understandable. Who
religion.
would want you? But
yeah. No. Oh my God. You're a funny man.
But
yes,
it really is, all humor aside, it's really sad, because if we have a different political point of view, I never thought, frankly, I'll be honest, Jacob, again, I don't want to be too humorous about this, but I never thought I'd see a situation in my lifetime where people running for the highest office in the land, where people running for president would use personal insults to describe their opponent. Discussing their policy differences, fair enough. But insulting an opponent because of the size of their ears? I mean, what? Come on. Really, come on.
It's bizarre. And, I work in the field of children and adolescents in the mental health field. And I say, in the home, when there's stable levels of government, the people follow suit, and the same thing at the top. But I think right now it's just kind of like almost like a homeless shelter, where a lot of the leadership is absent from high positions. And so how do we find our own Polaris, our own North Star, when, the highest of offices and people who are trying to represent that present the absolute worst, in many of us.
We have to use the contextual field to help us understand that we came here to demonstrate who we really are. And everyone who has been called a master, again, I want to reiterate, I'm not one of those. Anyone who knows me personally will tell you I'm way, way, way distant from even being at the beginning of mastery. But those that we have recognized on this planet as masters, Catherine of Genoa, and Teresa of Avila, Jesus of Nazareth,
Jacob of Massapequa. No.
People who have been recognized as masters, they have all used the law of opposites as an opportunity to demonstrate who they really are. They stepped into the contextual field and used it as a process in which they could not only demonstrate who they really are, but show us who we really are. You know, I'm so impressed with this guy named Jesus. I'm not going to claim that I'm an active Christian, but I certainly am impressed with this gentleman that we've heard about. He said to those who were following after him and watching the way he was living his life, and they were starting to exalt him, and they were starting to bow down to him, and he looked at them and he said, "Why are you so amazed? These things and more shall you do also." He was right. I'm not misquoting the guy. It's a direct quote.
Yes.
It's exactly what he said. And of course, we have done these things. We've done things that couldn't even be dreamt of, even in his lifetime. I mean, a heart transplant? Hello. Jacob, I didn't have a heart transplant, but I did have open heart surgery. Wow. 9 years ago, they tore me open from top to bottom, opened my chest up, stopped my heart after they sawed through my rib cage and opened my rib cage apart. Then they stopped my heart for 5 hours, and they gave me a triple no, not a triple bypass, a quadruple no, not a quadruple bypass, a quintuple bypass.
Wow.
Every major artery to my heart was blocked. And they were grabbing arteries from all over the place, from my chest, from my arm, from my leg, arteries that I didn't need, so to speak, and put them in my heart. And they closed me up after a 6 or 7 hour operation. And when I woke up from the anesthesia from that particular procedure, the doctor leaned over the table and he said, "You just bought yourself 10 years. So, you know what? These things and more shall you do also. What's available to us in the next 50 or 100 or 200 years from this species, if we last that long, we don't do each other in with some kind of nuclear holocaust. But if we last that long, we could do even more than we could even dream of today, including extending our lives. Go way beyond where a 100-year-old person would be considered a youngster."
Well, yeah. I'm hopeful that technological evolution will match the spiritual evolution, because I think if there's a big dichotomy or incongruency with the two, that could be quite detrimental.
And it is. The technological revolution is not only matching the spiritual evolution. Currently, it's exceeding spiritual evolution. So if we're not careful, the technological evolution will exceed our philosophical and spiritual evolution. We got to make sure we're doing it at an equal level. We don't create a technology that overcomes who we really are.
Yeah. It's amazing. I remember watching this movie called Out on a Limb with Shirley MacLaine, and there was a character named David, played by John Hurd, and he was talking about a man who said technology with an understanding of God is virtually unlimited, but technology without understanding God could be destructive. And this was in the 80s and 90s, and that is so true now more than ever. Really, it's powerful when I read that in the book and saw it in the movie, but it's true right now for what we're going through. We really need to have the two work in tandem, because that could really take things to a new echelon, unquestionably so.
To put it mildly.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's possible that we've got it all wrong, in terms of God and reality. And
it's not possible. It's actually happening.
Yeah.
I was asked by the host on the Today Show. I forgot his name now. Anyway.
Is it Matt Lauer?
Thank you. That's right. It was Matt Lauer. Thank you for the reminder. Matt was interviewing me on the Today Show a few years ago. And so at the end of the interview, he said, "Neale, What is God's? You claim to be talking to God, and that God is talking to you. What is God's message to the world? He said, "Could you put it in one paragraph? We have about 30 seconds."
Oof.
I thought
Talk
you.
about advertisement. Yeah.
I thought you
Marketing.
stinker. You would ask me the world's biggest question, and when you have 30 seconds left in the interview.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I thought about it for a second or two, and I thought, what can I say to this guy? Millions of people are watching the Today Show. And God gave you the answer. So I said, Matt, I can give it to you in, I don't need 30 seconds. I don't need one paragraph. I can give it to you in 5 words. So Matt Lauer turns to the camera and he says, ladies and gentlemen, from the man who claims that God is talking to him, here is God's message to the world in 5 words. Neale?
Yeah.
I
Wow.
looked at the camera and I said, God's message to the world. You've got me all wrong.
Wow.
Matt didn't know where to go with that. I'm sure he thought I was going to come up with some platitude, love everyone, or be kind, or be forgiving or whatever. But he never thought I would say, God's message to the world is that you've got me all wrong. Because if it's true, and of course, if it's not true, if it's an error, if I'm just, not accurate, then the discussion is ended. But if it's true, the discussion has just begun. And my understanding is that, in fact, we've got God all wrong. She is not who we think he is.
Yes.
He does not behave the way we think that she does.
So true. And change is hard for a lot of people for various different reasons. I think people are used to their comfort zone, as unhealthy as that can be. And it's a funny reference to Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb, but I guess to get to the fruit on the tree, you must go out on a limb. And for people to have a different set of belief systems, they have to open themselves up to something different. But for a lot of people, that could be life altering. You have cultures, religions, generations that come before you, and it's almost an insult to, the family and just this force that's kind of trying to get you to be the certain way, perpetuated throughout generations. So,
Jacob, life is about change. Change is the only constant in life. Life is constantly changing. Life is never not changing. Read that, Never. Everything is changing. If we define movement as change, which of course it is, a thing is over here and then it's over there. It's over here and then it's over there. If movement is change, then everything is changing every millisecond of life, because all of the molecules, all of the subatomic particles are constantly in motion. Therefore, the only thing that doesn't change is change itself. Change is always occurring. The answer, therefore, is to simply allow change to occur and to let it be okay that things are changing. To use change as the element that produces our opportunity to demonstrate, experience, and express who we really are.
Yeah.
Welcome change. Welcome change in your life.
It's like a title from one of your books that my father, who's not into this stuff, more of a religious man, but he saw the cover of the book. He's like, wow, I like that title. I think it was called When Everything Changes, Change Everything. And that's a beautiful way to live. And it was a great book.
It's exactly the title. When everything changes, change everything. Change your idea about change. Change your response to change. Change who you think you are as a result of change. And change what you understand is the reason for change itself. Change everything. When everything changes, change the way you respond to change itself. And suddenly you'll discover that change is changing you in a powerful, glorious, and magnificent way, providing you an opportunity to expand and to grow, or if you please, to evolve. I could, of course, be wrong about all of that, but I don't think so.
Yeah. When you get quiet in your potential daily practice or your own just sacred space, what do you feel is on the triage on a global scale in terms of the biggest decision that we're faced with at this moment in this juncture that we need to, well, we're faced with that we could handle in one way or the other?
We have to decide what the hell we're doing here. Most people don't know what they're doing here. They don't know really what they're doing. The largest number of people have bought into the cultural story. I got to get the guy, get the girl, get the car, get the job, get the house, get the better car, get the better job, get the better house, get the better spouse, get the better spouse, get the better spouse, get the kids, get the grandkids, get the gray hair, get the retirement watch, get the cruise tickets, get the illness, and get the hell out. And that's the cultural story that people have bought into, because most people don't understand what we're doing here. If you go down, if you don't believe me, go down the street with a clipboard and invite people to take part in a spontaneous on the street survey. Just walk up to them. Would you mind answering a few questions? I'm doing a spontaneous survey. Most people will say, sure, go ahead. And you ask them, what are you doing here? Who are you and what are you doing here? What is the purpose of your life? One person or two might give you a really solid, instructive, intuitive, insightful answer. The other 98 out of 100 will look at you and say, I don't know. I've been trying to figure that out myself. What am I doing here? If you want to have another interesting question, ask people, who are you? Who are you? Who do you see yourself as? They will say, oh, father, mother, granddaughter, son, child, professor, teacher, minister, stockbroker, gay, straight, conservative, liberal, Norwegian, African, French. They'll come up all sorts of labels of who they are. Only 1 out of 100 will say, I'm a spiritual entity. I'm a spiritual being, currently occupying this particular body, currently partnering with this particular mind, but I'm a spiritual entity, expressing and experiencing myself in the physical realm in order that I might demonstrate my true identity as an aspect of divinity itself. Thus, to not only experience myself, but to show others who they really are as well. Guys, excuse me, but isn't that what every person that we call a spiritual master has done? Have I misunderstood something here? I don't think so.
Yeah. So beliefs aren't a thing, they're everything, you would say.
I'm sorry, what was the beginning of that sentence? Beliefs
are not just a thing, they are everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, I wrote a book called The God Solution. And in The God Solution, I describe much of what we're talking about here in greater detail than we could possibly do on a program like this. And I say that the God solution is for us to come up with a brand new definition of God. That's the big misunderstanding. When God said, you got me all wrong. God said, I'm not who you think I am. And so the God solution offers the world a definition that the world's 4,000 religions, and by the way, there are 4,000 religions now being practiced on the planet, 4,223 to be exact. Check it out. Just Google. Type into the Google search engine, how many religions are there currently being practiced on Earth? And you'll get that answer. But the challenge with the world's great religions is that they can't agree on a single foundational doctrinal statement. They disagree with each other, and sometimes vehemently and dramatically. Yeah. But the God solution offers the world a new definition of God, a single statement upon which every religion in the world could agree. God is pure love.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whenever I say that in a retreat or in a workshop or in a speech someplace, somebody will stand up in the back of the room and say, "Oh, Neale, we've been listening to you for the past 25 minutes for you to tell us that God is love." Hello, we all understand that. Even the religions agree on that. And I have to say to my person in the back of the room, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, relax, pal, relax. I didn't say that. I said God is pure love."
Mm-hmm.
And my friend will say, "Okay, what's the difference?" The difference is that pure love needs, expects, requires, and demands nothing in return.
Mm-hmm.
Read that. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob, we can't even love the person on the pillow next to us that way. Much less can we imagine a God who loves us that way. Because pure love needs nothing from the beloved. If I'm loving my beloved because of what I think I can get from that person, praise or love in return or anything at all, then I'm not loving her at all. I'm simply loving myself, using her as a vehicle through which I can receive the love I want to receive.
Mm-hmm.
But when I love her without needing anything in return, then I've truly loved the way God loves us. God loves us without any requirement. God is not saying to us, "If you don't belong to the right religion, you're going to hell. If you wear the wrong clothes, you're going to hell. If you eat the wrong kind of food, you're going to hell." There are actually religions that tell us you can't eat a certain kind of food, or you can't wear a certain kind of clothing, or you must wear certain kind of clothing. By the way, I should tell people, just so you are clear, if you are a female and if you're watching this program, be sure to cover yourself from head to toe. And don't let any part of your body be seen by anyone. We'll allow you to have a little slit, so you can see where you're walking. But that's it.
Wow.
Because this is what God requires. This is what your
It's
faith requires.
it's it's incredible what some people have to go through in some cultures and parts in the world. And now, if you don't do that, you could be dead by being gay, by not covering everything up about yourself. It's just amazing how archaic and barbaric some parts of this world still are. And again, those beliefs influence these extremely dangerous, toxic,
But
negative
no question.
society. Yeah.
But what if we've got God all wrong?
Yeah.
What if God can be defined truly as pure love? By the way, anyone who wants a copy of the book, The God Solution, they have one at no cost. I can't send you the actual hard copy book, but I will be glad to upload you the author's manuscript to your computer, immediately. So just send me an email and say, "Neale, please upload me a digital copy of the author's manuscript from The God Solution." And I'll be glad to upload it to your computer. Just send me a note to Neale at neildonaldwalsh.com and ask for the book, and I'll send it to you by return email because I want everyone to read it. It's printed, of course. It's published as a book. If you want your own copy to hold in your hand, you can get one from any online bookstore. But if you'd like just to get a digital copy, I'll send it to you tomorrow.
Wow. Wow.
At no cost, by the way. I'm being very clear about this. I'm not going to send you a note saying you owe me. I'll send it to you for free because I want you to be able to get the message that there is a solution to the way the world is currently experiencing itself. It's called the God Solution.
God's Solution. Beautiful, Neale, and highly recommend all my viewers to check out that offering, as well as all of Neale's books, including God Talk, which just came out, I believe, in the fall or October this past year. Is that right?
Yes, it came out November the 6th. The book is called God Talk, and it outlines the process by which people can move closer to having their own experience of a conversation with God.
We could all have it. God's within. It's something that we all have access to. It's not for the few, but for the all. And Neale, thank you for coming on here and sharing such beautiful words, wisdom. I don't know if you have, and obviously we'll bring you back on the platform as many times as you allow me to, because you're one of my favorite guests. Is there any last words for now, or you feel like mic dropping at this point and you're good? But
well, I think we've shared an awful lot, but if I've been often asked, what is the single most important message, Neale, that you think you received from the divine? So I would share that with you as we say goodbye here today. The single most important message of all the messages in the 3,000 pages of the 9 Conversations with God books would be this statement that God made and shared with me. Neale, your life is not about you. Your life is about everyone whose life you touch and the way in which you touch it. But if you live that way, then you'll discover that in the largest universal sense, your life really is about you, for the elegant reason that there's only one of us in the room.
Wow. Love it. Neale, thank you for those moving, beautiful, and true to the core words. Every syllable, every moment. Thank you so much for coming on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. Always an honor to have you.
Thank you for the opportunity to share what I've been offered to share. I appreciate the chance to do so. Thank you, my friend.
That was a wonderful conversation with Neale. I loved every moment of it. I've learned so much from him, but each time that I do speak to him, it really allows me to better understand and to really go within in my connectivity to God. And I hope you were also able to go into a deeper connection to your own divinity within. So we thank Neale for being a tremendous guest and sharing a lot of profound insights, wisdom, and guidance from connection to God that we all have within each and every one of us. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you here next time on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder.